All eyes on North Korea this morning as tensions reach a boiling point with the United States.
Kim Jong-un showing off his country's military arsenal and maybe on the verge of another nuclear test.
All of this comes just days after the so-called mother of all bombs was dropped for the first time in combat. It took out more than 90 ISIS militants. So let's get some congressional reaction to all of this. Here to discuss, Illinois Congressman and Iraq and Afghanistan veteran Adam Kinzinger. Congressman, when you first heard the news that the Moab bomb had been employed for the first time in combat, your thoughts?
I thought it was pretty amazing. I actually was the last 5 days traveling in Europe, visiting with some of our best NATO allies. And what I heard from them was basically all, thank you for the strike in Syria. You've taken America's role back in the Middle East. You've held the red line that should have been held 13 years ago about the use of chemical weapons. And then with this Moab being dropped, and you realize that it wasn't dropped in the desert for show. It was actually dropped as a tactical weapon to destroy these places that ISIS was living. I think the message it sent was not just that we have cool big weapons, we do, but it sent the message that we're willing to do what needs to be done to destroy these terrorist networks around the globe. And I think not only did it send a message probably to North Korea, but it definitely sent a message to our enemies around the globe.
Yeah, I mean, you have served in both Iraq and Afghanistan. What do you think it does to the mindset of these terrorists?
So here's the thing. So back in the surge in Iraq, the reason we ended up turning the Sunnis onto our side and we ended up, frankly, winning from the surge was not because of only the addition of 20 or 30,000 troops. It was because President Bush, at a time when everybody was saying you can't win in Iraq, made a strong statement, said not only are we not going to win in Iraq, not only are we going to win in Iraq, we're going to double down and send more troops, and you can't defeat us on the battlefield. So I think when this bomb went off and it took out 90 ISIS members and it was, had a huge impact, it was President Trump saying, we will not be defeated. You think you can outlast us on the battlefield? Well, trust me, we're willing to do what's necessary to defeat you.
And Congressman, you are very familiar with that surge in Iraq, and that was boots on the ground in Baghdad and the Baghdad belts and surrounding areas. In this case, in Afghanistan, we're seeing overwhelming air power used. You're a pilot yourself in both Iraq and Afghanistan. What are the limits of what air power can do versus what boots on the ground can do?
So air power is not a substitute for ultimately occupying territory. Now, occupying territory doesn't mean it has to be American troops, but it has to be maybe Afghan national troops or partner troops when we're talking about Iraq. It's like dropping a rock in a bathtub, right? You initially have an area that's very clear of water, and the water just flows back in. So using strong air power like the president's doing, like our heroes in the military are doing, has to be backed up by indigenous force coming in and holding ground, and that's what I think is happening now in the strategy of Afghanistan. Ultimately, we have to empower our Afghan national partners, and in Iraq, we have to empower all the partners there that can do the same job.
That Moab bomb, along with the cruise missile strike on Syria, seemed to send a message around the world. How do you think that's being received in North Korea?
I think loud and clear. Look, North Korea is very unpredictable. We need to be very worried about the potential of a war on that, but we also have to be very strong in protecting our allies and, frankly, protecting our country. I do not envy President Trump in this decision-making process, but I think if Kim Jong-un had any doubt that the United States, under the leadership of President Trump, was willing to do what's necessary to defend our territory, I can't imagine he doubts that now. And, again, when you have the Russians in Syria saying if you bomb Assad, this is going to be the beginning of World War III, we bomb his Air Force, and they do absolutely nothing because they don't have the power to. Now I think North Korea is going to start to think about what are their chances of actual retaliation. So this sends a strong message.
Yeah, we're showing footage there. I mean, Day of the Sun celebrating today 105 years of their dictatorship. Many concerns that today or in the weeks to come they could test another missile of some sort. At what point, Congressman, do you think the U.S. needs to respond?
So that's really up to the administration to decide. Basically, North Korea is now where we are trying to prevent Iran from becoming, from going. So this, as flawed as the Iran nuclear deal was, it was put in place to keep them from getting to this exact position. So at the point I think President Trump and the administration sees that they can marry miniaturized nuclear warheads to an intercontinental ballistic missile that can either hit our allies or hit the West Coast or set off an EMP above the United States, we don't have any choice but to act. This is why we have to invest in the military, even more than $50 billion. I think we have to invest way more in missile defense and in taking out these launches at the source before they can even take flight. So unfortunately, we've stripped our military for too long.
You would argue that at some level, a preemptive strike or taking out their missile silos or others may be necessary in North Korea.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you find a point at which they're going to launch a nuclear missile, obviously then a strike must happen. But I think the thing we have to realize is that once you can maybe take out their nuclear capacity, but they have tens of thousands of artillery pieces leveled on Seoul. We have troops in Seoul. This is like the worst case scenario, but the way worst case scenario is if we actually have any concern that they're going to deliver a nuclear warhead on our allies or, God forbid, our soil.
All right, Congressman Kinzinger, good to have you here this morning.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.